Hey everyone, welcome back to the Legal Paige podcast. This is where we focus on the legal side of running a creative business, and I answer the questions you didn't even know you needed to ask. Today, I am very excited to do something a little bit different on this episode. I'm going to share a conversation that I had with the amazing Laurken Kendall. If you do not know who Laurken is, you should go look her up. She is an internationally published wedding photographer, but also a free-range homeschooling mom of 3 and the headmistress of the Mother Photographer School for Photographer Artists. And Laurken and I have a long-standing kind of virtual friendship online, and she invited me to come speak to her Mother Photographer group as kind of a guest legal expert. And what we did was we got into some really good, juicy, valuable topics for photographers and honestly, wedding vendors alike. We discussed things like chargebacks and the contract clauses that can help protect you in such instances, the aftermath of kind of the sepia bride controversy and the artistic style clauses that you need to have in your contract and things that we added into our contracts here at the Legal Page after that whole thing went down. The tricky situation that could occur of venues asking photographers to sign contracts, giving over their photos, and some things about the do's and don'ts of sharing photos with other vendors. Because we talked about all of this, I was like, hey, Laurken, can I share this on the Legal Page podcast? Because I think it would be very, very, very valuable. So she said yes. I'm very excited about that. So this is really an excerpt from our chat together. And I knew I really wanted to give you guys this insight because every creative entrepreneur can truly benefit from this discussion that we had back and forth. It is truly packed with all kinds of insights that I don't want you to miss. So let's get going. Hey there, I'm Paige Griffith, your host and an attorney for small business owners. I help online businesses and creatives get legally legit in no time. This podcast is all about the legal and the page behind it. I'll break down and simplify legal talk while providing practical business guidance every step of the way. And after over a decade in the entrepreneur space and becoming a mother, I'll also be sprinkling in tips for running a business and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes of what life's really like. As a gentle reminder and disclaimer, I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. So be sure to seek legal counsel for personalized advice. Welcome to the Legal Page Podcast.
Hiya, Paige.
Hi.
I have so many notes for you. So many discussions have been going on. And since I been posting to my Instagram about this sale that I always am massively on people's asses about taking advantage of, people have been DMing me, actually, I have this situation. What should I do? And this is going on. The amount of chargebacks occurring right now, I want to talk about chargebacks.
Okay.
I have never, let me record this real quick. Is it recording? Oh, it's already recording. I have literally never seen such a thing. In my many years of photography, I've never seen such a thing. I've seen the reverse where like the photographer issued a refund check and then somebody cashed it 18 months later. I've seen that happen. I've never seen a situation where a client pays for the wedding, receives the product, and then a year later puts a stop payment or not a stop payment, a chargeback with their credit card company. What's the deal with that?
Clients are just getting smarter and smarter. That's the deal with it. And because it's so easy to file chargebacks now, like if you do a payment processor, there's a little button for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then with banks, it's a lot easier too. And this is honestly primarily due to so much fraud. There's not a whole lot like actual fraud that occurs with like bank accounts. So banks are of course siding with people, especially when they sign a document. So the first thing I will tell you is there's no way completely avoiding a chargeback with credit cards or through a bank unless you do check or cash. And I know that some people are moving to that. Obviously, there is some opportunity cost there of just people being able to pay easily online. So you have to make the decision, like, are you going to utilize payment online? And if you are, it's kind of a cost of doing business right now. What you can do is set yourself up pretty well to argue it. So not only do you need to document everything, like you need to go back and make sure that their galleries are live. You can document how many photos they've downloaded. You can document like the delivery email, document everything possible because you're going to need to send that in when you are disputing the chargeback request. And then to say that it's fraudulent as well, the best course of action is to submit your contract. I don't have an amazing answer for you, black and white, like the contract is going to solve it. We have had kind of both sides of the coin here, where people have said they've even submitted their contract and it's gone the other way, even though they've delivered all services.
Yeah.
But we've also had people win chargeback disputes with the contract, and specifically with a cancellation contract, like somebody who was canceling services, didn't want to pay the remainder amount. The client will happily sign a contract that's like, release me from payment obligations. And they were okay with keeping the non-refundable retainer, sign that in a cancellation agreement, and then filed a chargeback a couple months later. And the photographer won the dispute with that cancellation contract. So I'm trying, I have examples of both. I always am just a forthright, transparent attorney. You need contracts. You need them to be able to present really good evidence. I know that we have a chargeback authorization clause.
I wanted to talk to you about that specifically.
Yeah.
Like, what is in that? Because that's new, right, to the Legal Pages repertoire.
It's not necessarily new. It's just more and more, it's been on there for a while. Yeah. Just more and more people are wanting to add something like that to their contract. You absolutely can. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't necessarily alert people to the ability to file a chargeback.
It's just wild that this is occurring.
You can fight it no matter what. Like if that clause is in your contract or not, you can fight it. That's why we don't have that clause like in our template contracts, because it truly is more of like an automatic payment situation. So if you do have a client that has like 5 installment payments and they're on credit card, I would probably put that clause in there.
100%. I mean, and I was trying to think of what occurrence I'm booking things where people aren't doing like direct, like Zelle transfers and things like that. Yeah. Are you seeing it primarily with credit card usage, or are you seeing it with like people paying through things like Zelle as well?
Only credit cards.
Okay, that's what I thought. I don't take credit cards anymore
but even
kind of
the debit
reasons.
card, if they use a debit card, then the chargeback has to go through their bank, and we're seeing banks side with clients.
Yeah, it's so messed up. I mean, like, I get it. I get that why they automatically want to side with the buyer. They want to side with their client. But for like PayPal too, PayPal's terrible with that. I've had people steal
I would never use
so
PayPal.
much shit. I always tell people don't use PayPal, because I went through many years of using PayPal, and I wish that I had changed much sooner to other payment methods.
Don't use PayPal. We have heard disputes go on the side of the service provider with like Honeybook and Dubsado. Both. We've had examples of that. I can't guarantee that it's going to go your way every single time. But just document as much as possible, have a good contract in place, and that's going to be your best bet moving forward. And argue it. The one thing I will say is like, don't just let chargeback requests fly. Don't be that business owner, especially for the industry, because it's not helpful. If we don't fight these chargebacks, clients are going to have an easier time doing it, and they're going to get our services for free. So as a whole of the industry, continue to fight them. Even if they don't go our way, continue to fight them.
I had a person, I think I saw this in the Legal Page Facebook group too, kind of a similar situation. It might have even been the same person, but they woke up and had their bank account $7,000 lighter than it had been the previous day, because somebody filed a chargeback on a wedding gallery that was delivered 12 months previously. 12 months. And the client had said they were happy with the result. And so I actually helped her, like, here's what we're going to gather up. Cause like I've been in court multiple times with my mother-in-law. So I have I like to be prepared. I like to have, like you're saying, all your little written out duckies in a row. We need to keep our evidence gathering and it also needs to be as part of your workflow, just generally speaking, just in case. So I like to push my clients into like text feedback with their slideshows and with their gallery, so that I have that, because a lot of times you get ghosting and then you're like screwed if they try to say later they didn't like it. She actually had a situation where her client had texted her, said how much they loved the photos, and then issued the chargeback and refused to respond to why they had done that. So she went through, and I believe everything looked like it was going to work out. She didn't message me back to say it hadn't, and that the bank had said they were reviewing it, and la, 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 la. I'm pretty sure that things went her way, or I feel like I would have heard about it. But it was just, to me, very horrifying to wake up and have that amount of money, especially these days. Like, people can't afford to have that amount of money go missing, and especially on work you've completed. You're kind of left holding the bag.
Yeah. I can't believe it either. I don't know why this is becoming such a thing. I think it has to do a lot with social media and Facebook groups and just the power of clients having more access to talking to each other, or maybe just the access to the internet, just bad people being bad people. Like you can't you can't control humans and what they're going to do.
Right.
You can only try to protect yourself as much as possible with having enough clauses, contracts, legal evidence in place to be able to submit to the best of your ability. And then it's at the mercy of this platform.
Yeah, because even then people are going to like you could do your very best, but it's just the best to be able to say, I'm legally covered there. Because I always tell people, like, a good lawyer can come in, and if you don't have one right word, they'll make Swiss cheese out of your whole contract. And then you're in a situation.
For like a $7,000 situation too. Like if you lose that amount of money and you don't win the dispute, I would file in small claims court. I think I need to tell people, like, you have to own being a professional and being a business owner. Any other business would probably file in small claims court for that, just to get this in front of a judge versus the bank or the credit card company. And then at the very least get a judgment against this person for their credit. Mm-hmm.
There's a woman wrote me today and said, I'm currently in this chargeback situation. This was not one that had happened in the past and is completed. This is one that she's dealing with right now. She said, I took a retainer and then the client comes to me 2 days later and says, never mind, where the venue date that we chose didn't come. They fell through or something with the venue fell through. So she's like, well, you already signed the contract and I have a non-refundable retainer fee. So I asked her, let me see what it says in there. When I saw it, I was like, oh, girl. I mean, it's not, she only took, thankfully but in the scope of what we were talking about previously, she took $1,200, which is a lot of money. But, if you have to give it back, at least it's not $7,000. But I told her, this is what I recommend. You have to get, and I'll tell everybody here and anybody who's listening, if you don't already have a legal Paige contract, the fee and retainer clause is worth its weight in gold.
Hefty.
That is the one that I'm always like, get it, because it is so thick. Like you're saying, she's a thick bitch. She's hefty, and she has you covered. And there's not going to be that wording thing where they're like, but you didn't say why you're keeping it. You just said you're keeping it, and that's not fair to my client. And a lot of attorneys, that's what they're going to go for. She didn't have that. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of clients do the rhetoric of, well, I'm going to sue you. And then nothing ends up happening. They're just running their mouths. But she also found out in her situation, she contacted the venue and they're like, no, we had the date still available. They'd already actually booked with us. They're just canceling their wedding and trying to get their money back from us too. So the couple and the couple's mother, somebody's mother, there's always a mother, is threatening to the photographer and the venue now. And she's like, what should I do? And I was like, honestly, I don't know, but you have to really do a cost analysis here and see, for you, is it worth the stress and all of this stuff? Odds are good unless they're extremely petty. And from what I've witnessed in my experience, they're not going to actually sue you. They're going to do a lot of this harassment type stuff. Yeah. But on the off chance that they do, is that worth it to you? Is the stress of that situation and having to constantly wake up fearful of what's in your email, what's in your text? Because she said the mother had called her 25 times in the past day since she said the retainer was non-refundable. But I also, on the other hand, am like, these people need to learn. When you sign things that are legally binding, they're legally binding. You know what you're getting into. The other thing with her retainer was it says retainer in one place and deposit in another. It says non-refundable deposit, but the word deposit is extremely problematic, as we have talked about on previous calls before. Yeah. And I said, where did you get this? She said, I bought it from another photographer. And I was like, ugh. That's where we get in. We just think that these things, they're using it, so I can use it. That's not the way that it works. And I've learned that over time too. I really want to make sure that if I come up against somebody who has a cousin or an uncle that's a lawyer and is able to look at it, that my shit is solid. And they're like, well, you still can go and fight against it, but odds are not that great that you're going to win. So I think it's really critically important that if you don't have a legal Paige contract right now, that the fee and retainer clause is the one I'm always going to be pushing people to get, just to replace the one that's in your contract, because it has that language that's going to keep you as safe as you possibly can be with good legal standing.
Yeah. And the other thing, if you don't have one of our contracts, go look at that clause and then make sure that you kind of have similar language that really aligns with what your fee and retainer clause says in your cancellation by client clauses, rescheduling by client clauses. Like all of those need to mirror the language in your fee and retainer clause. And that's the issues that you're seeing in other contracts is they're not cohesive throughout, which is called contradictory language. And that honestly can make all of those clauses void, which is not fun at all. Like why even have a contract?
No, and you want to feel protected when you're having people sign these and you're taking thousands of dollars off them, and people get heated over weddings. Especially, I think this is a good segue, as you were saying, in the age of social media where we see these crazy, I call it the sepia bride bundle when I was emailing people about like, here's the ones that I think that you need. Yeah. That I think you need to avoid, or at least to protect yourself against becoming the next sepia photographer. People are going to do that anyway. That girl did not deserve that. I mean, like, I think anybody with a brain and 2 cents is going to be like, yeah, that was clearly a really messed up situation. The bride was chasing clout, but in the age of social media, we're going to be seeing that more and more and more, where people get a hit after they complain online. And then they make it a 184-part series about why you suck at whatever it is that you do.
The photographer would have actually been named a bunch of times and screenshotted. And I mean, she didn't do that, but people figured it out really quickly. Yeah, but really easily. If it was the other way. Yeah. Clauses. Do you want me to just talk through
go
those?
over some. And I'll say, I would love that. I had, like, for my choices, I had the copyright clause.
Absolutely.
Artistic style.
Yep, that's a big one. And the one thing I would tell people about the artistic style clause is ours was already extremely robust. But we even, like, this is what we do at the legal page. We have our finger in the industry. I watched this whole thing go down. I was one of the, educators that just put stuff out that week that it was going on because it was so aligned with contract interpretation and contract law.
Right.
We even went into our artistic style clause in all of our photography contracts and added even like half of a sentence regarding weather effects to imagery editing. And just to make it even more clear than it already was, the contract totally would have held up. And the one thing I will say is I know this photographer had a good contract. I have not been able to review it, but I asked her specifically if she had this clause, and this clause, and she said yes. And you guys, that is why the photographer didn't get a lawsuit on her hands.
So can I just tell you quickly that she wrote me, because it's my contract, the last one I was selling before I moved to Legal Page. And when she wrote me about that, because I didn't really know what was going on, but she's like, just so you know, thank you so much. And I was like, I was at first sweating because I saw I have your contract from her. And I was like, oh God, but also even before I came on to affiliate with Legal Page, I did that. And many people know, despite selling my own contracts, because number one, I no longer wanted to bear the liability. I'm not an attorney. But when I saw someone else was using your contract, who's in the wedding industry like me, and she sent me some section and I was like, oh, I don't have my language this thick and written out. And so I asked her for a contract. I started looking through it and I was like, I have to just switch. While I feel really good about the contracts that are still out there, people are writing me. I'm like, here's what I would add. And I'm just telling them again, the fee and retainer and all that kind of stuff. But I was really grateful that I wasn't one of those people that was inconsistent across different sections and got her in any trouble, because I do take it very seriously. Like I said, having been in multiple lawsuits with my mother-in-law over non-wedding related things, but I've learned a lot, and I'm really passionate about protecting small businesses. It's wild what people are willing to do. So aside from the artistic style clause, what other clauses do you think are needed to try to be this armor against those clout-seeking clients who are getting on TikTok and screaming at you?
Yeah, the delivery of images and editing clause. So you need a really robust editing clause. We massively bulked up ours. It was already very good. The beginning of that clause always needs to be very clear that you have the right to cull the images that you believe are of professional quality for your clients. They don't get to see them, and they never get to see raw photos. I like to have that base language in a contract because that is the base foundation that you're working off of. And then if you decide to do something later on, as we all learned with the whole sepia thing that went down, I mean, she was willing to negotiate and have them purchase the raw files. But that's the same situation as a branding commercial, photography shoot. We all know that requires additional compensation, because basically you're giving a massive license to use above and beyond the personal license to use.
100%.
Yeah, so all of those clauses interconnect together: copyright, personal license to use, artistic style clause, editing of images clause, and probably like delivery of images and obviously like
artistic style. I'm writing these down. And you said delivery of images clause.
Yeah, let me pop it up right now, but we can keep going and I'll let you know.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that I don't have my note taker on here. It was supposed to pop up. I'm not seeing it. So, and one thing I'm going to do super quickly too is pop this sale link in here there it is, the legal page sale.
Yeah, and Laurken has a code, you guys, for an extra $10 off. So please don't forget to put that in checkout.
Yes. I would really greatly appreciate that. Okay.
And you will too. You get an extra $10
You get an extra $10 off. Yes, absolutely. But this is every year I'm just like, come on, let's do it, people, because this is really all that's standing in the way of you and having your life ruined by someone who is off their rocker. Okay. I want to talk about something else. This is we're changing gears here. This is something that I'm adding this year, and that is a non-exclusive vendor licensing agreements. Yeah. I have seen one of the trends this year is people going on side quests with the photos that are being given to them by photographers.
It is the thing this year.
I'm like, what is happening? I've never seen it before. Also, we've had 2 or 3 instances now of the bride or groom or somebody starting their own business using their wedding photos. So that's been a thing that's been occurring.
I've had that happen before. Yeah. Actually, when I was a photographer.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I mean, the answer there is pretty simple, right? They have a personal license to use, but like, do you actually want to rock the boat? If they were a good client, then I would say like, there's probably a way to go about it where you can say like, hey, this is kind of above and beyond the scope of your contract, just so you know. Yeah. Because a lot of times people don't know what they don't know and they just need to be told kindly.
Right.
And then of course, if you like play nice in the sandbox kind of thing, and if they like refer clients to you or vice versa, like I bet it'll come back around. But be really clear, like you said, I think in that instance, when someone has kind of already violated something by not knowing, I would give them a very clear-cut answer on how to know and educate them with that licensing agreement. So I would have sent them a licensing agreement and been like, I'm not going to pay or have you compensate me. I'm not going to charge you. But here's kind of the parameters of what that license is going to look like for you. If you go above and beyond the confines of that, it will require additional compensation. Then they sign it and they're like, cool, I can use it. But then you always have that to fall back on if they exceed the scope of it.
Right. And somebody wrote, we just had the last situation happen like last week or 2 weeks ago. And I just wrote out a quick email template, like, congratulations on your business. Here's what you need to sign just to be able to use those properly. And I'm not going to charge you anything, but this is industry standard when we switch from a personal use to a business use.
Oh, I love that.
Because I never want to be like, look what you've done, like, here you go, dummy. I hate being talked down to or like, that kind of tone where it's like naughty, you've done naughty. And you're right. People don't know what they don't know. And I think a lot of times our gut reaction is to, of course, their own experience, be like, how dare you? And I have to check that with myself as well. But in these instances, it's good to just take a breath and be like, would they have known that? Especially like wedding, like the clients, they don't know. They don't know what they think that they're their photos and they can basically do whatever they want with them until you have an opportunity to educate them. I have seen it though. I had a situation. So the reason why also you want to issue one to vendors is for a situation like this. And I'm going to be, just so everybody knows, going forward, any weddings that I work, before I deliver them a vendor gallery, and I'm changing my whole process with that too, to where I'm actually having it done through the client. Because
I love that.
I'm not doing it anymore. And for the last year, I've been having the client just deliver it to them and making choices of what they want to give and what they don't and taking it off me, because I feel like they are my photos, but they're not my photos to give. And there's things that people don't want. I saw it happen a year before last, where a client got upset because she messaged me. She's like, why does my florist have these photos of me? And I'm like, well, they're from your portrait time. And she goes, well, I didn't, I hid a couple of those photos. So that's things.
Do you like that approach though? So I think there's like a medium approach to that here.
Okay. What do you think?
Where like the photographer is like curating the highlight gallery that they're going to send to vendors, and then the client approves it. That's what I.
That's an option.
A way of like letting them approve it, and then you still send. The issue with like putting it in your client's hands altogether, you can totally do what you want to do. Like everyone has their own business.
Everyone has a thing.
is you kind of lose control over commercial licenses and usage at that point.
Okay, excuse me, what? It's like, I didn't know.
I mean, just a little bit. Like you're kind of basically telling your clients, yeah, you can give this to any third party that you want and they can use it for any reason that they want.
Well, I do tell them like the order of events is like, hey, do you want me to share your gallery with your vendors? Yes or no? If no, and they want to go through, then they go through and do it themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it. Like I said, you can do it however you want. Just be aware that there's probably a little bit more of a risk doing it that
associated that way. Okay.
I mean, I'm just a red orange flag person. Like this is an orange flag. And I'm like, just be aware that you have a heightened risk of doing that with like no power over sending the commercial license and the confines of that commercial license to those vendors. And the one thing I will say, Laurken, is like some people have actually taken our non-exclusive license agreement, which Laurken will make sure that you guys have access to the link and the product for the sale. People have like used that and kind of reworded it a little bit in terms of just the email to send to the vendors. So at least they get it in email format.
I think you have a template, don't
everybody
you?
Sign.
You have a template for that, don't you? That email on your site?
The email on my site is for like clients sending a contract to the client.
Okay,
you guys can get that copy and paste.
I thought I saw one in your vendor licensing blog. I thought there was an email there, but I must be thinking about something else, like a little email template that you gave away as a freebie.
Maybe.
I don't know.
At this point, I have looked at so many products today. You guys, if Laurken and I find the email, we will send it to you.
We'll let you know.
But also you could just do what I said as well. You could have the licensing agreement in your back pocket when you need it. And when you need someone to actually sign something like the one Laurken and I were just talking about, you could also like modify it into more layperson terms and put it in that email when you send the vendor highlight images.
And does that count because you're giving notice? Is that like,
Totally.
Okay, cool. Cool. So you don't have to have them sign something if you like necessarily, you can just kind of put them on notice. Like this is how the permissions and the boundaries with usage.
Exactly.
So then, I mean, that's a good point. I just hate so what I usually do is when they say yes, I send the preview gallery. So I'm not giving full access and maybe I just.
No, I would never give full access.
No, never, never, never. But when I got that email back, I was like, this is just exhausting. Like to just determine what photos you like of yourself and which ones you don't. So I stopped doing it. I've had success with it this far, but I didn't think about it how you phrased it to me. So maybe I'm going to rework that situation and say, here's the vendor gallery. You can send it off or I'll send it off, whatever. Rework it that way and then make sure that
you could have a little email blurb and you could just say, hey, if you wouldn't mind when you send it to them, if you could just include this in that email.
Nice.
Like, here's what my photographer said. Then it's that same thing. I mean, again, you're hoping that they send that with the email, but at least you're trying.
Yeah, right. I was thinking of like how to take it off of me so that I don't have to deal with that kind of back and forth anymore. So, but it is a good point. So I think I'm going to just remodel that situation and just say, here's the vendor gallery. If you want to send it on and just include it in there. Gallery.
Okay. Another way around this as well. I'm trying to think of like all the ways you can go about this. I know you didn't want to do with the back and forth, and maybe that you can take your hands off of and let the client deal with it. But if you at least have the vendor list and their emails, you could at least email them and say, hey, I've given client permission to give them they have the rights to give you the photos that they feel most comfortable with you using. But here's what my commercial license to use is.
It's a good idea.
Regarding these images. So then it could be a bulk email to everyone.
That's
and
a
then
really
they know
great
to
idea.
Contact the client.
Yeah, because I'm already doing the, hey, just so you know, my policy is I don't give the vendors the gallery, the client does. So that's like it's like a quarter step add to that, which is great. Easy peasy to do because I always collect their emails anyway. So that's good to know. I'm going to be changing that up a little bit. You genius. Cool. You absolute genius. Okay, vendor licensing was my other thing. Hold on, because I just dropped my notes. Social media. What do you think as far as what's going on in social media and clients not wanting to have their work put on social media or editing? They're editing over photos. Like, what are your thoughts on that from a legal standpoint? What can photographers do in their contracts?
Yeah, privacy of images clause is honestly just a necessity nowadays to have as a photographer. I think you just need to know that there's probably going to be a majority of your clients who will sign a model release over. But there are clients again are just becoming more private. I get it. I have kids. I'm becoming more private online. And if that's the case, like you kind of need to respect it. And put a privacy of images clause in and transition the model release clause out. So it's kind of like it fits in there instead. The issue is like when they sign the contract and then they decide after the fact that they want privacy. And I don't have a good answer for that other than like probably respect your client's wishes.
Yeah, it is like a case by case thing.
It's a cost benefit analysis there of like, is it worth it? Yeah, you have the full model release, but like, do we really want to upset clients? Maybe you can come back with like, hey, well, we do have this model release and like I would have charged a bit differently for full privacy of images because I would have accounted for the fact that I couldn't use that in my marketing and advertising. Would you mind selecting 3 images that I could use that maybe don't have your faces in them or something like that?
Yeah, I love that idea.
I've seen people go about it like really cool ways.
I feel like it's becoming way more prevalent and people not wanting to have their stuff online. So I think that that's something that needs to be addressed and having that privacy of images clause. Now, do you add that to your contract, to every contract that you have and just keep it in there? Or do you add it when they're asking you not to share the work?
No, it's an a la carte clause for that purpose. The a la carte clause is like 3 options, I think.
Okay.
And so we've drafted out like, if this happens with your client, use this one. If this one, use this one. And you're just changing it out with your model release clause. I would send the contract with the model release clause unless they've told you differently prior to them booking, and then just see if they take issue with it. And that's where we kind of see the most issue is they're like, hey, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this. You're going to look so good to them as a professional when you're like, no problem. I actually have a clause that I can change out for that. Here you go. Here's the new contract. They're going to be like, what?
Yeah, they're going to be very, very appreciative of that for sure.
Yeah.
I just had a situation kind of similar and it was really shitty though, because it's actually a really funny story. I always submit my weddings, right, to be published because I want to take advantage of SEO. And I'm also, in addition to like harping on legal things, I'm very much about getting your work published. So I do this. The big magazine denies it. They're like, no. So I'm like, cool. 5 months later, I post from this wedding. That same magazine DMs me and is like, hey, we'd love to print that wedding. Would you send us the gallery? And I was like, bro, like I sent it to you 4 months ago and you guys denied it. So just a lesson in like, depends on who's getting eyes on it. It's worth posting and sharing in all places. But anyways, they love it. They want to print it in their spring issue. I messaged the bride and she's like, actually, we don't want to be published. Oh. And I was like, I will just go myself then. Thank you so much. And what was I going to do? Be like, oh, it's going to be published? No, I was just like, whatever, it sucks, but it's just one of those things that's going to happen. And I took a breath and I was just like, totally get it. You don't have to be published if you don't want to be published. It's fine. There are instances where I might have fought for it if it was like a wedding in a place I'd always wanted to shoot and I wanted to get more there. And it was, like one of those bucket list situations. Yeah. I would have upheld my contract because I do think that like your contract is air. It's only as strong as your willingness to, uphold it and keep people to it. Yep. But at the same time, like you do have to, again, do that cost analysis. Like, is this more stress than it's worth? Like, what am I really losing out here? And the answer is not, like boasting, like having something printed again, some SEO. Yeah. But it's like, it was what it was. And I made a decision that for me, it was worth it just to be like, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These clients, man. But I hate surprises. I'm like, just tell me up front. Just tell me up front that you don't want me to post it. Tell me up front you don't want it blogged, all this other stuff. I hate those moments where they just drop it on you and you weren't expecting it. So I wanted to talk about, for those of you that don't know, we had a situation where it was a venue exclusive sharing rights, right? Or first right of sharing, something like that, where the venue wanted the photographer, the video, everybody involved, all the vendors involved to sign this contract stating that only the venue would be sharing photos first. And it had all these crazy parameters in it. Like I have literally never seen in my life. I've never seen that before. Have you seen that before?
I have not seen anything that egregious when you sent it to me, but I have seen other things. There's like, I don't know, it's also a venue trend in 2024. They're putting all these things in their contracts. So are other vendors too, which I understand their intent behind doing it. They just don't actually fully understand intellectual property law and copyright over imagery, photos being one of the most copyrightable works ever. And essentially what you guys need to know is like, any wedding vendor can try to put something in their contract. It's not like they can't do it. It's just isn't even an enforceable clause. And the answer here is like, one, I would never sign that contract if I was the photographer for the venue, because they were saying like, you have to give me all this, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. You own the copyright to your work.
Right.
But the one thing I will say as a whole is like vendors cannot require something in a contract when the person that they're contracting with has no authority legally to deliver it. So sometimes venues or vendors are like having their clients sign off on something like, I get all the images for everything. And the clients can't sign that. And even if they did, they don't have the license to be able to do that. They have a personal license to use for most purposes.
Right.
So just, again, it's like an education, communication situation where we just need to educate our clients more on that if it were to come up. And also vendors, just understanding, again, it's just one of these, all vendors need to like get along a bit better. It wasn't as big of an issue, I don't think, like a decade ago when I was shooting. I don't remember this being such a big issue.
Right.
But it is now. I think there's two sides of this here. I think there have been some vendors that have been really burned by photographers who haven't been willing to do anything, give anything. Maybe they're newer vendors. Like they really are just trying to like showcase a portfolio. Right. They're not trying to like violate your copyright usage. Maybe I think then there's photographers who have been really burned and they're not getting tagged. They're not like, maybe the images are getting edited by these vendors. Like,
oh God,
WTF? Like, you know what I mean? Like what I'm trying to like help you out here. So that makes sense. There's more people in the industry. There's more issues that have gone on. There's more like availability to have known what is going on across the world regarding all of this.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they can't have that in their contract and make it a valid enforceable clause.
Well, and what's so crazy about it is I was thinking about this, like photography is literally, in my world at least, that I can think of, the only product that's people expect it to be given away for free. Like this is our literal product. This is what we make, are the photos of the event. And so the fact that we give it to you for free as a courtesy should be not viewed as something that is an expectation or as something you're entitled to. I was talking to somebody
That's
about
really
this.
Interesting, because I kind of agree with you. I think there's a lot of vendors at a wedding that would never like do a styled shoot for you for free.
Could I get free flowers?
Wholesale. Yeah. You're at least going to pay wholesale. It's crazy.
Exactly. So, I mean, like this is our product. This is what we have put hours and time and money and skill and sweat and tears into. And we're just expected 6 weeks after the wedding to just give it to everybody for free. And of course, we know the clients paid tens of thousands of dollars for it. And then allow them to just use it to promote their business too. And I take no issue. Like, I get it. I love a sharing is caring. I'm a teamwork makes the dream work type person. But I'll never, for me personally, I'm going to have them do the liability, not the liability, the licensing agreement. Yes, because I want them to understand, like, this is my product and this is how you can and cannot use it. But I'm also not going to make them pay for it unless they're assholes, and then they will be paying for it. And that's just the policy that I'm going to hold true to my business.
It was really interesting from Melissa. She's saying, I've worked with multiple planners that expect the gallery and are more interested in when the photos will be delivered over the client.
Melissa, that is the most true statement I have ever read regarding how this industry operates.
Yeah, it's not their photo.
They'll be on your, like, the client will not message you. The planners will be on your ass 2 weeks later, like, hey, can I see photos or in your DMs or whatever? And I'm just like,
it's probably because they're full service wedding planners, like, and they're
100%
trying to do it on behalf of their clients. But still, I agree. It's so frustrating.
Well, I don't know. I go through the client only. So I have barely any interaction. And they're like, we would love to post some. We would love to share some. And I'm just like, it's not ready yet, bro. I'll let you know when it's ready. And my clients are going to be the ones giving it to you. That's the pipeline that I prefer. And I have received a little bit of like, about that this last year since I've been letting the clients, but I just prefer.
Melissa, there was a really good answer in the Mother Photographer Facebook group. I want to like take that little clip, Laurken. It was at the bottom of someone's suggested email response to this situation of like, I'm happy to give it, but on my own time, and like respect that.
Yeah, take it.
If you did like a 2-second clip, Melissa, that you were just sending to people and that was it, like I would do that to start, set that boundary and expectation for them. And then if they keep responding back, I would just ignore them. And because you've already told them I'm going to go through the client and it's on my timeline when I get it,
right.
Done according to my contract. Like,
right. It's pretty wild. The audacity and the entitlement that occurs in some places is like, wow. Because once I really thought about it, like, wow, this is the literal thing that I've worked my life for, is for this gallery of images. And you want to harass me to just hand it over to you so that you can promote your work. I don't know. It's just wild. You don't see it in any other part. But I do love to be able to share. And I love because it's a circle, like if you work with a planner, you love them, they kick you back. Like they recommend clients to you and stuff. So it's just weighing whether the relationship is there, how you want to handle it.
And you'll know, like
100%.
Laurken and I are both gut people. We've been in this industry for a long time. And like, if I can say one thing, like if you're feeling weird about that vendor relationship, lean into that because it's probably not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse.
Right.
If you're feeling good about it and you really truly feel like this could just be a little education situation, giving them a little knowledge on it, giving them a nudge, I would go that route.
All good advice. You're a genius. I have one last thing that I wanted to ask you. Like, going over this last year's, just all the trends and all the crazy shit that we've seen, is there something that we have missed in this conversation that you would like to bring awareness to as far as what people need in their contracts?
There's actually something that I've been learning is people not signing the contracts, actually. And I just want to point out like two things. One, an electronic signature clause. If you don't have a TLP contract, you may not have it in there. They're in all of ours. But that is really important so that if you're sending this contract out online, that it never becomes and they can sign in various locations. It's called an electronic signature clause. We also call it a counterparts and facsimile signature clause. That's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo for you, but it means you can sign in counterparts in two different parts. You don't have to be like sitting at a table across from each other. And facsimile signature means an electronic signature signed by each person.
Does it say that on the product? Sorry to interrupt. On the product, is it the electronic signature clause or the counterparts and facsimile?
I think it's also known as, but I think we call it a counterpart.
Okay, I'm going to just put both in there.
The other thing I'll just say is like I always suggest that you send the client their contract first. If you don't know how to send it, we have a really good email. Go to tlpemail.com. That's totally free. We give it to everybody on like our suggestions on how to better send a client contract. Always sign last. Don't sign first. Have your client sign first, because sometimes they sign and jump the gun and then they want some changes to the contract, or they'll think of things like 24 hours later. And then maybe you need to modify it or change it. If you've already signed, you basically have to completely void that contract and start over and cancel it, or you have to do like a formal addendum or amendment. Way easier to give yourself 24 to 48 hours prior to you signing, and then you sign. And then, of course, if they've signed and paid and you feel like everything's really good to go, then you sign, boom, secure that contract. You can do that in less than 24 hours if you want. But go check your CRMs right now and make sure you've signed all your contracts, my friends. I cannot begin to tell you how many people have open contracts because they forgot to sign. I don't want you to sign first to avoid this. I just want you to go and sign your contract.
Just fucking sign it. I to my abject horror, made the mistake last year. After it was all delivered, after everything was done, I went to do my archiving process, and I went in and I was like, one contract did not have my signature because I signed last. And my assistant Hales, one of her things that she does is to go through and make sure that everything is satisfied after a booking and that things have been signed. I don't know what happened, but I realized that I had done a wedding without my signature on the contract. And I was absolutely horrified. And I just said, God, I will give you my firstborn. I don't know what, to just not let this be a situation later. I'm so sorry. I was so horrified because I was just like, I felt like I was tempting fate with that situation. So that's so true. Like making sure that you're going in and double checking that you're signing it, because that is something we so take for granted. You get used to signing these contracts until you realize you haven't signed one and the client comes for something.
Yeah. Just be careful of that. That's my last tip.
Be careful. Okay, cool. So I put the link in the comments here. It's also on my Instagram story, my personal Laurken Kendall. It's on the Mother Photographer Instagram story. The things that I am buying this year, digital product, I can't remember what you call it, the contract basically for when you're selling digital products on your website. I want to remind everyone that you need a website terms and conditions, period, on your website. So this is a good time to get one of those too. You have to have that on your website. I'm adding the chargeback clause to my situation. I have a TLP contract, but I'm going to just pop that in there.
Love it.
Because I'm just absolutely terrified. And I want to be able to say, hey, it was in the contract if it happens, even though I feel like good about my language in there were it to happen anyway. But I want to have a specific clause pointing that out. Like if you're going to be an asshole, here's where you agreed to not be an asshole in this very, very specific way. And then the vendor licensing thing, the non-exclusive licensing, that's what I'm going to do as well. But you could also update your associate shooter contract. One of the things that everybody absolutely needs is a cancellation contract. Whether you need that now or not, doesn't matter. You need that in your arsenal for sure. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you can think of?
No, the cancellation contracts, you guys, is like a double whammy too. We give one in that bundle for you to use when you have to cancel. For whatever reason, it shouldn't happen very often, but it might. And then when your client voluntarily cancels as well. So there's two different contracts.
Two options.
Contract addendums and amendments is usually another one that I tell people to maybe think about, or a rescheduling contract.
A rescheduling contract, that's a good one too. I just had a wedding.
Just formalize those things. Formalize a cancellation. Formalize a rescheduling instead of all this email back and forth. Just have them sign it. And if this goes perfectly, we're tying up this whole conversation with the bow. Remember I told you at the beginning, someone won a chargeback with a signed cancellation contract. So like formalize the termination or change of the original contract as best as possible.
Formalize the termination, people. I love it. You're amazing, Paige. Thank you for doing this every single year. You're just a service to this whole community.
Yeah,
really
I love you
it.
guys. I love Laurken so much and what she offers and the education that she delivers to all of you. She's the real deal. So we both only work with good humans.
Well, I would agree. I try to make it that my life policy too. And thank you for the advice on how I'm handling vendor galleries, because I hadn't thought about giving my power away legally, in that respect. So I'm going to rework that, and I will share my changes to that with the community when I make that change.
Cool. Thanks,
magic.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Legal Paige listeners, that is it for today's episode. I hope this random conversation that I had with Laurken Kendall that wasn't exactly planned to be on the TLP podcast was really practical and actionable for you. We truly covered everything in this combo, from protecting yourself with solid contract clauses to navigating various tricky vendor relationships at weddings, particularly for photographers. And I hope that you are now feeling a lot more confident in keeping your business legally legit. A big, big thank you to Laurken for sharing her expertise and wisdom alongside me as I was giving my legal insights. But she comes from just a wealth of photography experience and information, and you really can learn from the experts in these instances. So if you are not already following her or exploring everything that she offers, please go follow Laurken Kendall on Instagram. I will make sure to link her in the show notes, and her Mother Photographer group and school. It's truly a perfect time to check it out. If you're a photographer, she's one of a kind. So I love her. She truly just is who she is. And it's a take it or leave it situation. But I hope after listening to this episode, you take it, because you can really feel who she is just through her voice. So as always, if you have any questions or ideas for future episodes like this one, please feel free to reach out. I am always willing to do something different and share those with you here on the TLP podcast. Of course, don't forget to leave a review on Apple if you have been enjoying the podcast. It really helps other creatives find these essential legal tips here in podcast format. So until next time, keep your business legally legit and thriving. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for contract templates, blogs, YouTube videos, and additional legal resources. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes and leave me a review and rating. It truly means so much to me to hear your feedback and inspires me to continue creating podcast content. Also, I want to personally invite you to my free Facebook group at tlpfacebook.com, where you will get access to me, my legal team, and thousands of other entrepreneurs in there for unlimited business and legal Q&A. Until next time, my friend.